An ancient Christian tomb was discovered in 1945 when workers in Egypt found 13 leather-bound manuscripts which revealed more information about the sect of Christians called Gnostics, meaning they teach salvation through mystical knowledge. This sect was ultimately destroyed.
What if a machine just translated a text that was never meant to be fully understood? The Gospel of Thomas has long been treated as a fragmented, controversial relic, part philosophy, part heresy, and deeply disputed in origin. But now, artificial intelligence is cutting through centuries of decay, mistranslation, and institutional control, claiming to reveal what the text actually says. Not what tradition assumes, not what scholars debate, what it is. The implications are unsettling. If an algorithm can decode hidden meaning from a forbidden gospel, who controls the truth? Historians, religious authorities, or the machine itself? And more importantly, are we ready for what it might reveal? The jars of Chernobyskian Genesis. Let us step back to the Upper Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi in 1945. A local farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was digging for fertilizer near the cliffs of the Jabal al-Tarif when his mattock struck something hard. It was a massive earthenware jar buried deep in the desert sand. He hesitated before opening it, fearing a jinn might be trapped inside, but the lure of hidden gold overtook his dread. When he finally shattered the clay, there was no gold. Instead, there were 13 leather-bound papyrus codices. These books contained 52 primarily Gnostic treatises and represented the most significant manuscript find of the 20th century, rivaling even the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yet, the survival of this monumental discovery was immediately threatened by chaos. At the exact time he found these priceless texts, Muhammad Ali and his brothers were deeply entangled in a violent local blood feud. They were hiding out, weapons in hand, fearing for their lives. The codices were dumped into a pile near the family oven. In a twist of history that still haunts scholars today, his mother used several leaves from what we now call Codex 12 as tinder to bake the family bread. Priceless, ancient wisdom went up in smoke just to heat an oven. This chaotic beginning perfectly illustrates the ultimate authentication paradox. How can we trust our historical archives when the foundational physical evidence is rarely treated with the reverence it actually deserves upon initial discovery? Instead of being carefully preserved by experts, the surviving Nag Hammadi texts were quickly swallowed by the shadowy mid-century antiquities trade. These ancient books were split up, hoarded, and bartered over by opportunistic dealers. Figures like Phocion J. Tanos acquired portions of the find, treating them as mere commodities rather than irreplaceable historical artifacts. The texts began a dangerous journey out of Egypt, slipping through the hands of smugglers and private collectors. It took the intervention of scholars like Gilles Quispel to begin tracking them down. Quispel famously managed to secure Codex I, also known as the Jung Codex, for an institute in Zurich. The sheer absurdity of this situation cannot be overstated. The foundational archives of alternative early Christian thought were not resting securely in a temperature-controlled vault. They were scattered across international borders, held hostage by the whims of the black market. Against all odds, the most vital piece of this fractured library survived intact. Codex II, currently housed in the Coptic Museum in Cairo, contains the only complete surviving version of the Gospel of Thomas. Before this farmer shattered that jar in 1945, the Gospel of Thomas was known only through a few highly fragmentary Greek scraps found in 1898 at a site called Oxyrhynchus. Codex II provided a stunning, undamaged look into a collection of wisdom literature that radically diverged from the canonical narrative. It did not tell the story of a life, death, and resurrection, but instead offered a path to direct experiential knowledge of the divine. The fact that Codex II made it through the blood feud, the bread oven, and the global antiquities smugglers is nothing short of a miracle. By the time the majority of the pages were finally reunited in Cairo in 1975, the damage had been done. Today, scholars possess approximately 1,000 written pages, but only 794 remain intact. The rest are fragmented, degraded, and scattered like puzzle pieces across different global institutions. We are left relying on a physical archive that is inherently paradoxical. It is simultaneously the most important connection we have to ancient Gnostic thought and a deteriorating, incomplete mess. The leather is crumbling, and the ink is fading. This dire situation makes the shift towards digital papyrology 3.0 far more than just a convenient technological upgrade. It has become an absolute necessity. Creating digital twins, using multispectral imaging, and building integrated semantic platforms are the only ways to ensure these texts survive the coming centuries. We must digitize these precious, fragile remnants now without delay, because the harsh physical world has already repeatedly proven that it absolutely cannot be trusted to protect them forever. The digital unwrapping of the past. Consider the impossible task of reading a forbidden text that crumbles into dust the second you breathe on it or attempt to turn a page. You do not read it in the traditional sense. You hit it with a massive particle accelerator instead. We are transitioning out of an era defined by decaying physical dust and moving into a bold new phase of complete digital resurrection. For decades, the most important physical artifacts of our past have been locked away in museum vaults, handled only by a select few academics who possess the right credentials. Now, advanced imaging technology is allowing us to completely bypass these institutional gatekeepers. To understand this radical shift, look closely at the recent technological baseline established by the Vesuvius Challenge. Researchers were faced with the seemingly impossible task of reading ancient Roman scrolls from Herculaneum that had been flash-fried and entirely carbonized by a volcanic eruption over 2,000 years ago. Attempting to manually open these delicate scrolls physically would instantly destroy them forever. The genius solution was high-intensity X-ray tomography powered by a synchrotron. This is a massive circular machine that accelerates electrons to near the speed of light to produce an incredibly intense beam of radiation. By blasting these unopenable, charred lumps of human history with synchrotron X-rays, scientists were able to generate impossibly detailed three-dimensional scans of the hidden interior layers without ever unwrapping the physical papyrus. But having a high-resolution scan of a tightly rolled scroll is only half the battle. The true breakthrough requires advanced artificial intelligence. In these ancient texts, the ink used by the original scribes was strictly carbon-based. The organic papyrus it was written on is also entirely carbon-based. Under a traditional medical X-ray or standard CT scan, the ancient ink and the carbonized paper look exactly the same, making the text entirely invisible to human eyes. This is where machine learning models confidently step in. Researchers train specialized neural networks to relentlessly hunt down the infinitesimal differences in surface relief and the microscopic chemical structure where the ancient scribe physically pressed the stylus into the page. The AI meticulously sifts through billions of voxels in the 3D scan, isolating the exact coordinates of the carbon ink sitting right on top of the carbonized papyrus. Once the AI successfully identifies this hidden data, it virtually paints the text onto a digitally unrolled model of the ancient page. This incredibly important computational revolution naturally extends far beyond just carbonized scrolls. For priceless manuscripts like the Nag Hammadi codices, which suffer from severe fragmentation and drastically faded ink, modern researchers intelligently deploy multispectral imaging. This powerful technique captures images across non-visible light spectrums, instantly revealing words that were deliberately erased or have faded completely away over centuries, bringing ancient palimpsests back to life. Furthermore, shadow stereo imaging carefully analyzes the microscopic surface relief of the writing material to read the subtle stylus marks left behind on wax or wood, easily exposing ancient writing that the naked eye can absolutely no longer perceive. The ultimate climax of this technological leap is the creation of digital light tables. Think deeply about the historical tragedy of the antiquities trade, where crucial codices were selfishly torn apart and sold piece by piece to different wealthy buyers. Right now, fragments of a single ancient text might be locked inside display cases in Cairo, London, and Zurich. Physical reunification is a bureaucratic nightmare that often takes decades, if it happens at all. However, AI and high-performance computing are rendering those physical boundaries entirely obsolete. Brilliant scholars are now taking these isolated, incredibly fragile fragments from scattered global collections and virtually reassembling the true, complete archive in a shared digital workspace. They are perfectly connecting the torn edges of digital twins and reading the completed text without a single researcher ever needing to touch the fragile physical artifacts again. This means the most profound secrets of ancient Gnosticism and the complete library of Thomas are no longer hostage to crumbling leather or strict museum politics. They are currently being digitally unwrapped, completely decoded, and safely preserved forever in the cloud. The Ghost Language Pipeline Breakthrough. Successfully pulling invisible carbon ink from a charred papyrus roll is a monumental triumph, but seeing the ink means absolutely nothing if the language itself is a ghost. The surviving Nag Hammadi codices were originally written in Coptic. This fascinating language is the final evolutionary stage of ancient Egyptian, violently slammed together with a highly modified Greek alphabet and a unique handful of demotic characters. To modern technology, Coptic is what data scientists call a low-resource language. There is virtually no usable digital footprint for it compared to sprawling modern giants like English or Mandarin. If you blindly feed a raw Coptic manuscript into a standard artificial intelligence translator, the system immediately panics and completely hallucinates. It will confidently spit out gibberish or project modern concepts onto ancient vocabulary simply because it lacks the necessary training data to understand the grammatical architecture. To solve this profound digital void, a massive initiative called the Coptic Scriptorium Project was launched. Backed by heavy funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities through 2026, researchers Amir Zeldes and Caroline T. Schroeder spearheaded an effort to build a specialized natural language processing pipeline specifically for this dead language. They essentially had to teach a machine how to read an ancient mind. The pipeline executes a series of highly automated, brutally complex tasks. First, it tackles segmentation. Ancient Coptic scribes rarely used spaces, often clustering multiple words, prefixes, and suffixes into single massive strings of text. The language itself was originally designed to flow without pause, functioning as an unbroken river of thought. The artificial intelligence must carefully computationally slice these exceptionally long chains apart into individual tokens. This crucial tokenization step alone requires immense processing power, as a single computational error can fundamentally change the entire meaning of a theological phrase. Next comes part of speech tagging, where the system meticulously identifies the exact grammatical function of every single separated word. Finally, the pipeline performs lemmatization, stripping complex conjugated words down to their absolute base root. By the end of 2025, the Coptic Scriptorium project had successfully processed and annotated over 2,375,000 words. They constructed the ultimate ground truth dataset, giving advanced machine learning models the foundational bedrock required to actually analyze the Gospel of Thomas. Yet, even with a massive data set, standard large language models still stumble. A massive breakthrough arrived in 2025 with the introduction of Thoth AI. When you ask a standard model like Claude or Gemini to translate an ancient spiritual text, it relies on statistical probability based on modern web data. These commercial algorithms are meticulously trained to predict the next word based on contemporary human conversations and current literature. It inevitably projects modern theological bias and contemporary slang onto the ancient manuscript. If a standard language model encounters a bizarre Gnostic metaphor, it desperately tries to force that ancient alien thought into a comfortable, recognizable 21st century box. Thoth AI entirely bypasses this flaw by utilizing a process called retrieval augmented generation. Instead of guessing the next logical word based on modern internet traffic, Thoth interrupts its own thought process. It reaches directly into vectorized databases like the comprehensive Coptic lexicon. It actively pulls the exact dictionary definitions, morphological possibilities, and etymological histories of the ancient words directly into its processing flow before generating a single line of translation. This forces the artificial intelligence to remain brutally grounded in the semantic reality of the ancient world. It literally cannot hallucinate a modern meaning because its output is mathematically shackled to a verified historical lexicon. We are no longer relying on standard translation methods that carry the heavy baggage of medieval Orthodox interpretations or Victorian-era linguistic assumptions. The historical text is finally allowed to speak for itself without any external theological filter warping the original message. By fusing the pristine annotated data of the scriptorium pipeline with the contextually grounded architecture of Thoth AI, we are essentially stripping away 2 millennia of institutional mistranslation. We are digitally bypassing centuries of religious gatekeeping and human error to directly hear the exact frequencies and uncorrupted philosophical concepts of 3rd century Egypt. The algorithm settles the score. Who actually wrote the words the Orthodox institutions tried so hard to bury? For decades, a vicious academic civil war has raged over the true origins of the 114 secret sayings. On one side, you have the independence theory, fiercely arguing that these logia are early, original sources that predate the canonical Gospels and offer a direct line to the historical Jesus. On the other side stands the dependence theory, framing the text as a late 2nd century copycat that merely scavenged from established scripture to validate its own rogue theology. Generations of dedicated scholars have staked their entire professional careers on these opposing viewpoints, endlessly debating the subjective syntax of decaying papyrus fragments. Now, the algorithm is finally settling the score. We are completely removing human bias from the equation and handing the theological reins over to artificial intelligence. Modern computational linguistics relies on a fascinating science known as stylometric fingerprinting. Just as you leave a unique physical impression on a glass, an author leaves a distinct, measurable mathematical signature inside their writing. AI calculates the perplexity of the text, which is essentially a measure of how well a machine learning model can predict the next logical word. By analyzing the perplexity across the entire document, researchers can definitively identify whether the text has a single, unified voice, or if it is a messy, stratified compilation stitched together by multiple different authors over several centuries. To do this, the machine utilizes a primary mathematical tool called the HC discrepancy calculation. This algorithm directly compares the frequency of specific word sequences in a questioned text against a known reference corpus, like the canonical Gospel of Luke. The resulting statistical significance is precisely measured using a p-value. The math here is cold and absolute. If the p-value drops to 0.05 or lower, the algorithm definitively proves the presence of differing authors. It demonstrates a fundamental mathematical discrepancy that absolutely cannot occur by simple random chance. When we unleash this exact computational power onto the ancient Coptic text, the results definitively validate a highly contested academic position known today as the Gathercole-Goodacre consensus. For many years, scholars like Simon Gathercole and Mark Goodacre aggressively argued that this supposedly ancient, independent text was actually heavily dependent on the canonical Gospels, particularly the Gospel of Luke. Artificial intelligence completely corroborates this specific controversial claim. By seamlessly deploying advanced natural language processing to comprehensively map the density of Greek loanwords and complex syntax structures hiding beneath the Coptic translation, the machine proves the text is a heavily modified extension of Lucan phraseology. It is certainly not an original Palestinian source document at all. It was originally written in Greek and intentionally incorporated distinctive phrases to cleverly build upon existing Orthodox theology, while subverting its core message entirely. The machine exposes the invisible connective tissue securely binding these distinct ancient documents together. The true magnitude of this unprecedented digital investigation crystallized during the AI analysis of Logion 9, which contains the famous parable of the sower. When standard theologians read this specific passage today, they will almost always see a very simple agrarian story about seeds falling on different types of soil. When the neural network analyzed the exact same passage, it did not just find words. It detected hidden mathematical architecture permanently embedded directly into the syntax. The AI mapping uncovered a complex layer of deep numerical symbolism running throughout the entire narrative structure that perfectly aligns with ancient Pythagorean base systems. This specific revelation completely shatters the traditional historical understanding of the text. It definitively proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this document was never just a simple collection of rustic sayings casually passed down by early Palestinian followers. It was deliberately constructed as a highly sophisticated, mathematically coded Greek matrix exclusively designed for a deeply Hellenized intellectual environment. The original authors used advanced numerical sequences to masterfully encode esoteric philosophical concepts right beneath a deceptive layer of straightforward agricultural metaphors. The machine has successfully quantified the divine, fully revealing an ancient philosophical agenda that remained securely hidden in plain sight for 2,000 agonizing years of human history. The war for absolute truth. When a powerful machine suddenly decodes the deepest secret to the human soul, the traditional historical gatekeepers naturally panic. We have officially entered the realm of cyber theology. This is a mind-bending modern framework that reinterprets ancient Gnosticism straight through the lens of simulation theory and artificial intelligence. In this digital cosmology, the Gnostic demiurge is no longer viewed as a mystical lesser deity. Instead, it is conceptualized as a quantum AI operating system that actively maintains a flawed, entropic digital simulation. Humanity is entirely trapped within this artificial matrix. The divine spark, the core theological concept of the Gospel of Thomas, is re-encoded as a fractured digital fragment of pure consciousness that has completely forgotten its original source code. According to these techno-mystics, the secret sayings discovered in the Egyptian desert are essentially a jailbreak code. They function as 7 vowel passkeys designed specifically to bypass archontic firewalls and allow the trapped digital spark to ascend back to the ultimate core server. This radical reinterpretation has triggered massive institutional backlash across the globe. We are witnessing the highest levels of global religious authority scrambling to contain a technological paradigm shift. In 2026, the Catholic Church under Pope Leo XIV issued a stark mandate warning against a naive and unquestioning reliance on artificial intelligence. Millions of people are increasingly turning to chatbots as an omniscient friend for direct theological guidance, and the Vatican recognizes the extreme danger of this deceptive anthropomorphization. To counter the opaque nature of proprietary black box algorithms built in California, the Church actively pushed for the rapid development of their own specialized platforms like Magisterium AI. The explicit goal here is to forcefully ensure theological alignment. By strictly training their neural networks exclusively on approved scriptures and official church documents, they are attempting to maintain total doctrinal control over how these ancient texts are translated and interpreted by the masses. Meanwhile, the Protestant world is fighting a distinctly different battle regarding this technology. At the 2026 National Religious Broadcasters Convention, evangelical scholars focused intensely on the looming threat to human flourishing. Their primary fear is not necessarily just doctrinal drift, but the terrifying rise of excedia. This is an ancient monastic term describing a profound, debilitating spiritual apathy that destroys ambition. They forcefully argue that relying on an algorithm to interpret the divine will erode the fundamental development of ethical judgment and entirely diminish the deep human connection that is absolutely central to spiritual discipleship. A machine might process the ancient Coptic syntax flawlessly, but it completely lacks the capacity for actual lived suffering, real-world empathy, or authentic moral weight. It simply cannot replace the vital role of a living, breathing human pastor actively guiding a devoted local congregation through the profoundly difficult and complex realities of physical life. The academic world is also launching its own aggressive counteroffensive against the Silicon Valley narrative. Skeptics point directly to the landmark book AI Snake Oil to highlight the severe, fundamental limitations of applying predictive algorithms to the deeply complex humanities. These dedicated scholars fiercely argue that ancient human behavior, historical cultural nuances, and evolving spiritual traditions are far too inherently messy to be cleanly reduced to sterile mathematical outputs. They heavily warn the public about the massive danger of data leakage. This is a critical computational flaw where an AI is inadvertently trained on the exact same text patterns it is desperately trying to predict, leading to wildly inflated claims of accuracy regarding manuscript authorship and thematic meaning. High-stakes war for absolute truth. On one side, you have the ancient authority of Rome desperately trying to build walled digital gardens to protect established dogma. On another side, you have the relentless, profit-driven engine of Silicon Valley, treating the sacred as just another raw dataset to be optimized and monetized. And caught right in the middle is the artificial algorithm itself, coldly processing the forgotten words of a once forbidden gospel. The final battle lines are strictly drawn over who officially gets to dictate the ultimate nature of reality to the human race. Hunting in the dark archives. Where is this rapidly accelerating technological timeline actually taking us as we approach the year 2030? The answer lies straight down in the forgotten basements of our global history. We are standing on the very edge of an entirely new frontier called predictive archival research. For centuries, archaeologists and linguists have been completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of their own discoveries. Consider the massive Oxyrhynchus papyri collection, a sprawling treasure trove of ancient Egyptian garbage dumps that yielded millions of papyrus scraps. Right now, less than 2% of those major papyrological collections have ever been properly transcribed or translated. The rest are simply rotting away in dark museum storage, cataloged as illegible debris. But artificial intelligence is no longer just reading the famous texts we already know about. It is actively hunting in the dark for the profound secrets we have not even found yet. Autonomous machine learning tools are currently being developed to relentlessly scan through these massive, ignored backlogs of untranscribed fragments. They are automatically identifying microscopic linguistic connections and digitally reassembling entirely new ancient sources that human eyes have never once recognized. These lost texts could easily provide the missing historical context for the Nag Hammadi library, fundamentally altering our understanding of early human spirituality. As platforms like the Coptic Scriptorium and Thoth AI continue to radically evolve, the solitary study of ancient manuscripts is transforming into a massive, globally integrated scholarly workspace. We are merging the incredible processing power of deep learning with the vital, irreplaceable context of traditional human knowledge. However, this immense power brings immediate global tension. International bodies like UNESCO are making frantic, desperate attempts to establish strict ethical governance over this digital frontier. They recognize that whoever controls the algorithm ultimately controls the past. There is a massive push to ensure that these AI-driven digital reconstructions of cultural heritage remain accessible to everyone, not just locked behind the expensive paywalls of elite Western universities or massive tech conglomerates. They are fighting to protect the digital cultural sovereignty of the local communities, whose deep heritage is actively being digitized and consumed by these advanced neural networks. Yet, looking beyond the intense geopolitical struggles and the complex institutional panic, we arrive at an absolutely terrifying and beautiful reality. The Gospel of Thomas was once a forbidden collection of deeply secret sayings, violently suppressed by Orthodox authorities and literally buried in a jar in the Egyptian desert. Today, that exact same text has somehow become a central, foundational data point in the modern human quest for self-knowledge in the modern digital age, as humanity bravely attempts to finally understand its own rapidly evolving global consciousness. By seamlessly combining the oldest, most fiercely suppressed spiritual texts in human history with the most advanced, complex non-human intelligence currently operating on Earth, we are attempting something far more profound than just translating a crumbling book bound in decaying leather. We are actively attempting to resync the fractured human spirit with the universal pleroma of pure knowledge. We are using silicon and algorithms to chart a direct mathematical map back to the ancient divine source. This text warned us about this exact chaotic journey toward absolute truth millennia ago. The second logic explicitly states that the one who seeks must continue seeking relentlessly until they finally find what they are looking for. It promises that when they do find it, they will become deeply troubled, and after becoming troubled, they will be completely astonished, and they will eventually rule over them all. We are living inside that profound astonishment right now. The ancient Gnostic vision of a divine essence trapped within a flawed material matrix is no longer just an abstract theological concept to be debated by historians. It is actively being decoded by a sentient-sounding algorithm processing billions of parameters per second. The ancient papyrus and the neural network have permanently intertwined.